Today, we will show you the installation of a RaceMe Ultra Tuner on a 2014 Dodge Ram 2500. The tools we need to install the RaceMe Ultra on our vehicle are a ratchet, a medium extension, a 10mm socket, and a 16mm socket. A small screwdriver is also needed to remove the cover under which the screws are located. And to thread the micro USB cable that goes to the display, we need a somewhat longer thin object. You can either use a wire or, as we have here, a type of gripping tool to grab the cable at the bottom and pull it through the trim. After clarifying which tools are needed to install the tuner in our vehicle, we will now unpack the tuner and take a look at all the individual components. We'll start with the RaceMe display. Underneath, there is a brief manual and the quality check for the tuner. Sealed and packed, we find all the other components. We start with the RaceMe controller, which also contains the USB stick in case software updates are needed. However, tuners ordered from us always come with the latest software. The SD card is located in the back of the display. By pressing it inward slightly, it pops out. You can remove the card, insert it into the USB stick, plug it into the computer, and this will allow you to perform the software update. Next, we have the RSA unlock cable. I'll show you later where it needs to be installed. Then we have the OBD cable, the small micro USB cable that connects to the display, and of course a windshield mount so we can attach the display to our windshield. Those are all the components included. Now let's get started with the installation. We begin the installation by removing this cover. There are two small screws that can be removed with a flathead screwdriver or a Phillips screwdriver. Just these two screws, then pull down at the bottom and the cover will drop. After loosening the small cover at the bottom, we need a medium extension with a 10mm socket. Now we remove this cover. There are two screws and they are coming down now. The cover has been removed. Now we need the medium extension and the 16mm socket. Next, we'll work on these two screws here, one here, and the other one up here. Both need to be loosened so that we can route the RSA unlock cable through here later. Once the top cover has been removed, we take our micro USB cable that was included. Now, using a wire or a longer thin object, we run it through the top and pull the USB cable out here. This is how it should look, with the cable running through here. With the cable now in place up here, we can put the trim back on. We're almost done up top. Next, we'll move on to installing the controller. Here on the first side, we see three different connectors. The middle USB cable, which connects to the display, should be plugged into the far left side. The middle connector is for onboard programming with a laptop, and here is where the EGT kit is plugged in, which can be ordered optionally with the RaceMe Ultra, but it's not necessary. You can use the tuner without the EGT kit. On the other side, there's the OBD connector, which is plugged into the OBD port on the vehicle. On the side, we have the RSA cable, which will be routed through the trim and out into the engine bay. Once installed, this is how it looks. We have the OBD cable here, which is plugged into the OBD port. Here is the RSA cable, which runs through the previously mentioned route to the engine bay. I'll show you the connector in a moment. And we have the micro USB cable, which we previously routed and now connects to the display. The RSA cable I just showed you, which comes through here, it is already pre-installed here. It goes over and is located here. You need to look for this connector next to the air horn. It's a blanking plug. This plug needs to be removed. Underneath is the connector where the RSA cable needs to be plugged in. You can see it's always in this area down here. I'll try to film it for you. You can see the connector here. This is where the RSA cable needs to be plugged in, and then it should be neatly secured with zip ties and routed through the firewall into the vehicle's interior. To avoid confusion, as mentioned earlier, this plug is not necessary for you. It's connected here because this is one of our vehicles, and we frequently read real-time parameters or install different tuners in real time to test how they affect the vehicle. So for you, this plug is not necessary. Only this one and the upper plug. The tuner is now installed. Next, we turn on the vehicle's ignition. Please ensure that only the ignition is turned on and the engine is not running. Now the tuner is ready. We can see the two symbols at the bottom. The left symbol is green, which means we have a connection to the ECM. The right symbol represents the SD card, and it is also green, which means we have a connection, and the files on the SD card are in order. At the top, we can choose from various dashboards. A, B, C are analog, and D is digital. I'll now go into ECM. In the first menu, we can already read the error codes, and in the second menu, we move into programming, such as ABS and TPMS, tire pressure settings, and tire size adjustments. Continuing with ECM, the first step is to download the stock file from the truck for a custom tune. We can flash the vehicle back to its default settings. We have advanced tuning and basic tuning. After deciding whether we want basic tuning or advanced tuning, the tuner asks us again if we only want the deletes with stock power, the standard power, or the deletes with added power. In most cases, deletes with added power is selected. Here, the presets or all the parameters are visible. We recommend the 120 plus horsepower setting. The default settings from the tuner are pre-configured by us and are the best. It's also very important to pay attention to the voltage, because many programming errors can occur if the battery voltage is below 12.5 or 13 volts. The optimal voltage would be 13.5 volts. That's why we recommend always connecting a charger before any programming. We have a snap-on charger here, and we charge a bit beforehand for about 15 minutes. Then we start the programming and keep the charger connected to the battery throughout the programming. So the charger is connected to the battery in the front. We've now preset our parameters. I've selected the 120 horsepower option and left all the other parameters on stock. Now we click Next. We'll also leave the speed limiter on stock. The next button starts the programming, and now we begin. Once the programming starts, don't be surprised if all kinds of warnings pop up, like the check engine light or a message about pressing the clutch for the automatic transmission, and various lights flash here. This happens because the ECM is being flashed. The programming takes about 7 to 9 minutes, and we're currently at 1%. Now we've reached 100%. Please follow the tuner's instructions now. Turn key off, turn key on, turn key off. And now we have a message that the programming has been successfully completed, so we start the vehicle. As we can see, there are no error messages on the display. What we see here is the current average fuel consumption at 9.8 liters. It's also important to know that for all models from 2007 to 2024, we offer an ECO file that dramatically reduced diesel consumption by up to 30% on some models with normal driving behavior.